everyone. Welcome to Connecting After Isolation. I am Marcy Bullock. You are all career champions. This is why you are having the opportunity to listen to today's presentation. And I have put a Go link on here for those of you interested in talking to me afterwards. You are welcome to unmute and ask questions during this presentation or type in the chat. And also, if any of you would like to have a one-on-one, I love doing walk-in talks, and I also do sit and sips for those of you who do not like to move. These are just 20-minute meetings, and anytime you want to chat about some of this fun stuff, if you like to geek out on it, I would be happy to do that with you. So I am starting with, why am I sharing this content with you, Connection After Isolation? The reason I'm sharing it with you today is because I've been working at 4 different universities over the last 30 years with college students and alumni, and also hiring managers. And I have never seen a situation such as this with what is going on with our student population. I don't know if those of you who are teaching that are in this, such as Lisa, find the same thing, that students are paralyzed in classes. They don't know how to ask questions, and they are, I see some nods, really struggling. And we all know that they've been struggling. So I like to start off with how fragile our population is right now and how carefully we need to handle them. So I got to thinking, I want to teach them how to interact again, because many of these students never participated in any kind of in-person interview before or career fair before. And now it's 2023 and they're seniors, and they're going into a little bit of a panic mode when it comes to trying to do this term we keep hearing, which is networking, which sounds kind of, I don't know, a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds super scary. So when we had CareerCon, which is our annual event every spring semester for students, kind of like a Comic-Con theme, but career-wise, I shared this presentation with them and it went over really well. And it was just an opportunity to understand how to make connections and how to change the idea of networking being slimy. So from that standpoint, I was able to say to myself, I wonder if other faculty would like to learn this. And you're here. So that means you would like to learn this. And I will have an evaluation form at the end of this, and I'll tell you a few other things that are going on with Career Champions. We have some new links. I'll pop them in the chat, which are resource sharing for our 130 career champions. So there'll be some great resources for you to take away. So one of the things I want to start off with, friends, is inspiration from others who are struggling. I found that students have been responding really well to connecting to other people and realizing that they're not alone. And so I actually started an activity in my class, and I know few of you will have time to do this if you are teaching students, but it was so meaningful that I'm going to tell you about it. It's called the Lifeline. And we begin with just, I say 2 minutes to my students. You get 2 minutes to tell your ups and downs of life. Then they go on for longer than 2 minutes because they all need to be heard and they all need to have the feeling that they're not alone. But because my class is career exploration, I kind of have a little bit of the luxury of being allowed to give them that spotlight. And let me just tell you that these were the things I heard this semester. I have family members that are incarcerated. I had a roommate that completed suicide. I am struggling with eating disorders. I have been bullied because I am trans, and I'm just mentioning the first 4 out of probably 20 that were really heartbreaking. So one of the things that we have is our podcast. I know y'all are sick of me talking about it, but every single week we have someone talking about overcoming a struggle. And the newest part of it that we have is the bite size. So we just do quick little bite-sized snacks for students. And the one that I want to share with you today, and I'm going to put it in the chat here, is the one that we just did on It's Okay to Ask a Question. So this is one of the examples. It's episode 204, and it's okay to ask for help. I just ramble for a couple minutes on these bite size. You can literally turn it on 2 times as fast and get the nuggets pretty quickly. In addition, we have lots of alumni that are talking about the fact that their life has also been a struggle, and welcome to being a human. So what I want to share with you today is this idea of networking reimagined. And when I say reimagined, I mean that it is not this used car salesperson mentality that like I'm trying to get something, I'm trying to sell something. It's more of I'm connecting. So instead of feeling like it's a meeting, students have really responded well to listening to this terminology of a two-way conversation. And then, of course, they've asked me, how do I do that? Because they've been behind a screen for a couple of years and trying to expand their views so that they can learn about opportunities, information, and potential paths. Now, as I share these tips with you, I want to start off by saying that there are students who will not find this easy. And there are students in my class that struggle with eye contact, that struggle with the possibility of connecting with other people in a way that is too vulnerable for them. And I don't want to make any generalities about people on the spectrum, but I do want a caveat to say that not everyone will find this easy, and they may need some additional help to work through some of the strategies that I'm going to talk to you about today. It really all ties into building relationships. That's the key behind this whole idea. So one of the first activities I want you to do today is what I have coined my board of directors table. I had students do this and talk about it in their small groups at CareerCon, and they really lit up. What I imagine is you sitting at the head of a boardroom, and you are the CEO of your life. So all of you are participating in this today, and you are imagining, where do I want to go in my life? What's the next career that I might be interested in? What's the next exciting goal that I want to set for myself? And then I'm going to ask you to think of the first person who comes to your mind who will sit around your boardroom table to support you in moving forward and helping you grow. Now, I have coined each one of these seats with a different definition, which I'm going to give you. So if you have a paper and pencil handy, draw your boardroom, whatever artistic talents you have, and you can go ahead and think about which is the first person that comes to your mind who will be in that seat. Now, I do want to tell you, please do not put the same person down twice. And students were not happy about this because they were like, I want mom in 3 seats. But the bottom line is one person can only sit in 1 seat at a time to support you. So let's go around the table. The first one to the left is comfort. And go ahead and do this while we're going. Write down the name of the first person you think of when a struggle has happened and you need to be lifted up. For students, it could be I failed a test. Who do you go for that hug? So I'm going to give you a moment while I take a sip to write down that name. The next one is celebrate. This is the other end of life, the ups and downs. Something great just happened. You just got chosen for the award you had been nominated for. You just got the promotion. You just got the wonderful letter from a student that said, I'm so grateful that you're in my life and thank you. Who do you want to share that with? Maybe over a meal in the evening, the best part of your day, maybe over a telephone call. Some of these people don't have to be present physically in your life. They could even be in your heart. And I sometimes do think of people that have passed on as in my celebration, and I have my own little conversations. So write down the name of the person. Again, it would be ideal if it's different than comfort that you like to celebrate with. And feel free to break my rules. If you don't like my rules, put the name in every single box, but add a new one because ideally we want to have 7 names. Next up is clarification. So you have just come to a fork in the road where you are not sure which direction to turn. and you need someone to help you clarify and give you advice. Who is the person that you really look up to provide clarification for you? It's similar to the coach, which is the next one, but it's a little bit different because if any of you have ever been involved in sports, and Vince and I were just talking about how his daughter is on a soccer team, and my daughters also were. And so we share a love for going to the NC Courage matches. When you're part of a team, there's a coach who's pushing you a little out of your comfort zone. Who in your life do you think of that really pushes you out of your comfort zone? And you look back and say, at the time that was uncomfortable, but I'm really glad that you told me I had that potential. They could be cheering you on, or they could also sometimes be telling you about things that you could be doing better. Next up is the role model. Keep these names coming. The role model is this person that you just really look up to. You think, who is the first person that comes in your head when I say, this person has it all together? How do they do it? This could be a famous person or a celebrity. This could be someone that is living or dead, but it's just this amazing hero that you have in your life, and they are still around your board table. Because you can imagine what they would be saying to you based on that podcast you listen to. Like for me, I might put Michelle Obama down because she has a new podcast out and I'm reading her new book, The Light We Carry. And I think about that, like, wow, she came from such humble beginnings in South Side of Chicago, and look at all the things that she's overcome. And she's so real about it when she talks about it. She doesn't sugarcoat it. She talks about problems in her marriage. She talks about a miscarriage. She talks about issues raising children. And these are things from personal life that I can really, really connect to. Next up is industry expert. So we're all in higher education. Who is an expert in higher education that you admire? It might be someone in your division or your unit. It might be someone at a university that's in the triangle, or nationally that maybe you see posting interesting things on LinkedIn and you say, wow, that person really has an expertise in this area that I care a lot about. For example, I'm going to look at my list of people here so I can give a good example. So we have some people here that are in first year life sciences. So maybe there's someone that is just really knowledgeable about this whole process of helping students transition to their college. We have people here from exploratory studies, academic advising program. Who do you really look up to in the industry that is unique to you? And then the last one, this one's a fun one. Who will confront you? So when you are going down the wrong path, this is different than clarification, which was help me, advise me, give me guidance. This is more like, oh, I made my call. And this person's going to say to you, Sarah, I think you need to make a U-turn and come back. Who will confront you? And this could be in any part of your life. So I don't want you to be overthinking it at all. Just the first person that comes to mind that might just tell you something you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And again, in retrospect, I can look back on the person in my life who confronts me and say, I didn't exactly like hearing that, but I'm so glad you told me. So I talk to students about how important this is as we think about building connections in our life, to be so intentional about letting these people know that they're on your board. For one, you're going to feel really grateful when you find out you're on someone's board. It's an honor. I had some students tell me, I put you down for, the clarification, and I was just like, melting. I was so happy. This will also make someone else's day when you tell them that. And you are super intentional about reaching out to them and continuing to cultivate the relationship for when you need support, for when you need motivation. And friends, look around your table and think about diversity. How diverse is your group? however you define it. It could be age, it could be ethnic background, it could be whatever you think of as diversity, because to me, some of the most interesting parts of diversity are not even what we see on the outside. I got a message from someone that I was on their board. I'm so happy. So diversity, and we did this activity with students with M&Ms, and we had them pick like their favorite singer and their doctor and the author of their favorite book, and they would pick a color M&M to represent that person's color. And at the end, when they looked at them and they were like, huh, interesting. Everyone was a green M&M. What does that say about me and diversity? Who stretches you? That's kind of a cool thing to think about too. And also who will challenge you. So that's one of the first activities I want you to be able to take away is your board of directors. And I will share this presentation with you on the resource list. And what I'm going to do is pop the resource list in this chat right now. So we've had, I think, 7 different career champion graduate classes. So some of you may know each other from, let's see, you to waiting room participants. That's not what I meant. Let me try that. Everyone in meeting. Let's try that. Take 2. So on this Google document, career champion, feel free to open that in your other window now. After our last career champion training, which we did for the Poole College of Management, we started this document. And we're just popping things in the resource line. Like, I just heard this great podcast, or this is an awesome assessment. For example, I just added this one in from an experienced NC State parent who walked up to me at the end of the conversation I had with the prospective students a week ago. And he said, I started this website called Who Am I? And I thought, okay, this dude is trying to sell me something, like I have no budget. But then I had a meeting with him and legit was really excited about his tool. So if you want to check that out, if anyone in your life is in career transition, it's a little bit more for people that are out of college, thinking about where do I want to be in my next career path. And he's not charging anything for it. He said one person that used it tripled their salary and they donated back to me. So I couldn't find the catch. But anything that you want to add in here, I have that walk and talk link in here. These are just interesting things that relate to some of the things that are going on in career champion training. And it is for anyone to edit and utilize. The next slide I have up is about what I think are the 3 things in my 30 years of working with students that help the most in building relationships and connecting. Again, not using the N word, which is networking, but using the word connection. So the first one is generosity. This might sound a little contradictory for me to say that it is generous for you to ask for advice, because you might be thinking, I need something, and I'm asking someone to give me something. But I would like to propose to you, for example, when you looked at your board of directors table, think for a second about your emotional bank account and think for a second about people who are giving to you, and they're always making a deposit. And then that's probably why they're on your board, because, they think intentionally about that with you and you feel like that's really generous. There's probably no one on your boardroom table that's constantly making withdrawals. If they are, they're probably not on your boardroom table because they are sucking the life out of you because they're never offering anything back. I believe that if you ask someone for advice, that makes them feel good because they know something that they can share with you. And I always ask my students, if someone came to you and said, I'm interested in studying communication at NC State University, I'm in high school, can you give me some advice? How would that make you feel? And inevitably they smile and they say, wow, I'm kind of puffing out my chest a little bit and my shoulders are broader because I get to give back to someone else. So I think, again, going back to that podcast, it's okay to ask questions. Asking for advice can be really generous, and you can also share anything that you can offer to that person after the conversation where they gave you advice. Maybe you learned, for example, I'm going to go down the list here and think if I can think of a good example from someone that's in my group of people. So maybe you learn that they like plants. I think Alexis is here today. And you say, hey, did you see that they had plants over in the Brickyard at the sustainability fair? I just wanted you to know you can go get a free succulent today. So you are intentional about thinking about who that person is and sharing something maybe that could be valuable to them based on what you know. Vulnerability. So this sentence is so hard to say, but so important to say. I struggle with fill in the blank. How do you do it? So typically starting a conversation like that makes you feel really vulnerable because you're sharing an insecurity, but we all have them and we're all human. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard Brene Brown's vulnerability, and it's like one of the most watched TED Talks. But I think students, they're not that uncomfortable being vulnerable based on that activity that I told you earlier. It's an avalanche of vulnerability when the first person stands up and says, I experienced sexual assault. And they're standing up in front of 30 people. And everybody in the room is watching, and they have pictures up on the screen, and they're talking about their life and what happened and how it was traumatic. This sentence, I struggle with X and how do you do it, can be a wonderful opening to that connection and being vulnerable. And then the gratitude piece, of course, like just saying, oh, remember when I asked you about what I struggled with? I just want to thank you because I tried what you told me to try and it really helped. No need to reply. That's the key way to end it. Sending a message out to you just to let you know that that tip that you gave me was so helpful and you do not need to reply. For example, Jean is on this call today. So I might say, Jean, I learned that thing from you about how to make someone feel like they belong in my class. And I just want you to know that it really was beneficial and I appreciate you. No need to reply. Now, some of these are coming from a book that I really like, which is by Keith Ferrazzi, and it's called Never Eat Alone. And I heard Keith Ferrazzi speak at a conference once, and he wrote that book, and it just really stuck with me. And I think generosity and vulnerability came from that. So Never Eat Alone, that's a really good book. He wrote another one too, which I can't think of at the moment. Conversation tips post-COVID. Okay, so students do struggle a bit with this because they haven't been out in the world. So I have just 4 quick tips here that I really like. The first one is don't multitask. That's just so obvious and so disrespectful when you're talking to someone else and you're doing 3 other things. A student in my class told me this week they were in an interview and the interviewer was on their computer. The whole time this person was physically sitting in the desk next to them, talking about themselves. I said, that's just rude. The second one is interrupting. So letting people finish, that's a big thing. And then don't equate your experience to theirs. So it's really easy to think when you're in that conversation, like, oh, your mom died. Well, guess what? My sister died. And I want to tell you about that. And I want to try to relate to you because we both are grieving. But just think to yourself, it's not about me right now when I'm going in that vulnerable side. And think to yourself, this is about this person, and show authentic interest. So that really helps build that connection. And then this last quote, I think, is by the Buddha. If your mouth is open, you are not learning. I said that to my daughter the other day, and she said, I'm going to remind you of that, Mom, next time at dinner. So here are a couple of things that students are like, that sounds cool, but what do we really do? So I always tell them to prepare 3 prompts. So let's do this in the chat right now. If everyone could just type in where they're from, wherever that is to you. It could be where you were born or where you came before Raleigh. You don't have to say what you study or what you enjoy, but let's just look at the where are you from for a second. Because everybody's from somewhere, and it's really interesting to see it populate and go, oh my gosh, there's 2 of us from New York. And all of a sudden, these people are having a little side conversation together because they share something in common. Wow, someone's from Ecuador, super interesting. Someone's from Alabama, someone's from Pennsylvania, someone's from New Orleans. So this is a good one. Again, sounds obvious, but people aren't sure how to start the conversation and look for commonality. Again, whatever someone is studying, that's kind of fun for them to talk about. Or I always tell them, don't ever say you're undecided. And Brian Peters can believe that too. But say you are deciding, because you are putting it out into the universe and you are looking for that decision to come into play. The ask and the ask is a 1-2 punch in a conversation. So I'll start with the closed-ended question, which is, do you like food? And typically people will say yes. Or do you like cars? Whatever you're into. Do you like soccer? And that's an easy one to kind of get the conversation going. And then I'll inhale, and that gives a little bit of a change in the rhythm. I'm big on breathing, for those of you who know me. I do it every single day, 24/7. And then the second question is going to be an open-ended question. So that's the why or what got you interested? What's your favorite restaurant? Which, by the way, that's the next thing I want you to type in the chat, because I am all about the food, and it has to be a Raleigh restaurant because that's where I live. So I want to find some new places to go. Listen to hear, not to reply. Really hard to do, really good to remember. When you're in a conversation, it's easy to be thinking, oh, I'm going to say that next. And just when that pops in your head, I'll tell students, just pop it like a balloon. I'm just going to listen right now. I don't have to be ready to reply immediately when this person stops. I can just say something like, that's really interesting. All right, so we're looking for some good restaurants, and people are pondering. They're like, I can't pick one. Listen to hear. Now, why I have a commuter train on here is because one of the studies that I really found stick with me was the Chicago commuter train, where they asked both introverts and extroverts, self-proclaimed, before the study, would you like to participate? And if so, you get a Starbucks gift card, and that's all it required. Everyone was like, I'm in. So half of the people were asked to put their earbuds in for this 3-hour commuter train, and half of the people were asked to start a conversation with a stranger. And one of the classes I teach is practicing happiness. What they found at the end of the 3 hours on multiple train rides is people reported feeling better after having the conversation. So even though it might not seem like it's going to feel good, usually it does. Data shows us that. Now, when I talked about how to let go of the multitasking, this is a book I really like. It's called How to Break Up with Your Phone. And I'm reminded that 60% of college students nationwide report depression. 40% of college students nationwide report anxiety. So what I'll ask students, if they're using their phone as a crutch, if you walk into your room and everyone is on their phone, and it might be to avoid an interpersonal interaction, is for them, and this is written up in the book, is to ask themselves why. So why am I on my phone at this moment? And it may just be like, I don't want to start a conversation because I'm worried someone will make fun of me, or I might get rejected, or I might say something ridiculous, or this person won't like me. And I mean, we're tribal beings, so we are wired to make connections as humans. As I said earlier, neurodiversity, there are some people that feel challenged with that. So then I say to myself, when I do the same thing with this lovely thing that is attached to me, what else could I be doing right now instead of looking at my phone? And it may be a craving to see the latest Instagram post or TikTok, but instead I might take a breath. And our research shows that that actually calms our nervous system, and we have an opportunity not to feel in fight or flight when we're looking at all the new things that just popped up in our phone. A couple of other tips in the book that I really like are only check social media on your desktop. So just delete them off the device. There's been some talk lately that some of the Generation Z students are going back to flip phones. I don't know if that's true or not, but I did see it on TikTok. And that might mean that they don't want to always be looking at what everyone else is doing and getting FOMO. Also, put your family on that VIP list. Yes, something big might happen, and so you can get the important messages. And this was a new term I learned from the book, which is phubbing, which is just snubbing someone in a face-to-face relationship by looking at your phone instead of them. One of the things that I mentioned also about this presentation is that this is important for students as we are preparing them for the workforce. So one of the statistics right now is that employers are expected to hire 14.7 more college graduates this coming year. That includes the May and December grads than last year. But of course, we're also hearing a lot about hiring layoffs and, all the tech companies are cutting people back. So people are a little bit nervous about what is going on in the labor market right now. So as a recap, the things that we've talked about today, and I really appreciate the time that you all have given me. I'm so grateful that you tuned in today, is we talked about connection as a replacement for the term networking. We talked about two really great strategies to use when connecting, one being generosity, and that means asking for help and also sharing something of value. And we talked about vulnerability, the really challenging one, but that's what helps us get to what Keith Ferrazzi calls refrigerator rights, which means you could just walk in someone's kitchen and open their refrigerator. You know who those people are in your life. Those are the really deep relationships. And we also talked about our board of directors, and we created our board of directors today. And your homework assignment, because we are going to finish before 1:45, is that you need to tell your board of directors they're on it. You need to message them. That is your homework assignment, and say, I was in a presentation today, and maybe you even want to recommend Career Champion to them. As I mentioned earlier, I do have an evaluation form that I'm going to pop in the link right now, which is coming your way. And while I do that, I would love to tell you a couple of the other things that are coming up with Career Champion. So as you know, we started this program in, no, you might not know, August. And in August, we began Career Champion, and we had 130 people to be certified. So